without saying. Most importantly, I thank the residents. I thank you for your patience, understanding, and support throughout the construction period. Indeed, your criticism have served to push us to higher heights because we don't have thin skins. We take constructive criticism and we work on that. Ladies and gentlemen, every bridge tells a story. This bridge tells the story of a government that continues to invest in its people, a commitment to delivering modern and resilient infrastructure, and communities whose future is strengthened through improved connectivity. It also reminds us that infrastructure is ultimately about people. As another quote aptly states, they say that a geographic divide can keep neighbors apart, but a bridge transforms neighbors into a single unified community. For years, communities on either side of this crossing were separated by circumstance. Today, they are once again connected by a structure that will serve generations to come. So today is a day to celebrate progress. It is a day to celebrate partnerships, including that of the Jamaica Broilers Group. And it is a day to celebrate another important investment in Jamaica's development journey. I want you to listen closely now, because we cannot take for granted all the development that we're seeing, and they come, you know, our budget, we don't have less funds, but we do expend a lot on infrastructure development. So may the new Spring Valley Bridge serve you for many years to come. We pray blessing over the bridge. We thank you, and may God bless this community and our beloved country, Jamaica. Thank you.
You see what I mean when I say she's passionate? Okay. Many thanks to our Permanent Secretary, P.S. Arlene Williams. At this time, I have the pleasure of welcoming to address you a man who needs no introduction in these parts, none other than your Member of Parliament, Mr. Clifford Everald Warmington.
Thank you very much, Madam Master Ceremony. Today I'm very happy and delighted that I can participate in the ribbon cutting and opening of the Spring Village Bridge. It has long been coming. Got a whole lot of complaints continuously, and I just say, just be patient, it is coming. And it has finally arrived. And I want to commend this government for acceding to the cries of the people of Spring Village for doing this bridge for us. I think this is one of 3 bridges that were lost. This collapse, Bushy Park washed away, Lennonsville washed away also. I know that the government, I might speak about it later on, is committed to replacing the Spring Village Bridge on this new program. I got complaints just today about it. I said, just be patient, you can't get before Spring Village. You won't wash away after Spring Village. Lennonsville, that one there was interest to replace in doing Colbeck Village up there. But what I can say to you from Bushy Park and the others, as I said before, be patient, because this government build back better and stronger. So just be patient. I'm happy that eventually we see this bridge here. It take a long time to get it, and this has to do with the whole procurement process. And this type of system we have prevent government from moving forward the projects that they want to move forward with. Even though we have the amendment to the Act in 2025, there are still areas of impediment. And for this bridge, I want to thank the contractor, Dwight Construction, Mr. Woodbine, for taking it on for all of us. He did the Troy Bridge also, because this went to tender 3 times. Eventually, he was convinced to come back in, and we got it down here. And Mr. Woodbine, I want on behalf of the people of Southwest St. Catherine to thank you immensely for the work you have done in having this here. Mr. Levy, I've been advocating. He was the one who came to me while I was in the ministry and said we have to get it done, and he wanted to make an offer. We kept our bargain, and we have it here today. Thank you very much, Mr. Levy. And I know Borales is always a good corporate citizen. Good corporate citizen, because they did the road from gutters straight up to Spring Village at their own expense. So, Brother Robert, I want to tell you more than that. Coming short is a contract to complete from the roundabout the bridge to Borales. That part is very bad, and I know that it's now in the process of procurement, and very shortly that will be done. All right? So you did part, we're going to finish the rest for you as such. So thank National Brother again. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are very grateful for this. I must thank the Prime Minister, the Minister, PS, and all of them. Mr. Hunter in particular, because he and I went through a lot of red tape because of the whole procurement process to get it here. Mr. Hunter, I thank you very much. And I thank you for the effort and the assistance, the guidance you gave me while I was there. We appreciate you very much. Mr. Downer, Mr. McCarge, I want to thank you all publicly for your effort and help. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are grateful. We give thanks to God himself for having this done for us. Thank you.
And now I also thank our Chief Infrastructure Improvement Agitator, as well as our Chief Gratitude Giver, Mr. Clifford Everall.
Mr. Evie and your team for the work that you have done. I know that when it was challenging and your workers couldn't get to work, you actually contributed or built a pedestrian bridge. So I want to echo Mr. Warmington's sentiment about the good corporate citizenship that you have always demonstrated, not just in St. Catherine, but across the island. To the contractors, the residents of Spring Village, thank you very much for your patience and understanding, and it's very good to be here today to open this bridge. This is an important day for the communities that depend on this corridor. For several years, residents, workers, students, businesses, transport operators had to live with the difficulty, the increased cost, lost time, and challenges of traversing Spring Village without the bridge. So today is not simply about opening a bridge. It is about restoring connection that matters to daily life, commerce, public safety, and community confidence. This bridge is valued at approximately $250 million and replaces a structure that could no longer safely meet the demands of the community. With pedestrian access, concrete walls, protective works, signs and markings, this is definitely an upgrade in the safety. I want to recognize the work of the Works Agency, of which I oversee, as well as the contractor, Mr. Woodbine, who is in the audience, the engineers, the technical teams, and all the workers who participated in making this bridge a reality. Many of the workers from this said community who have built an infrastructure that they now own. Infrastructure is at the center of Jamaica's developmental strategy because roads, bridges, drainage, and water systems are not just infrastructure, are not just cement and sand, but they are also economic assets. They determine how people move, how businesses operate, how communities function, and how efficiently the economy performs. This is why the government's approach is not just to treat infrastructure as isolated projects. Under the direction of the Prime Minister, we are pursuing a deliberate strategy, an integrated program of national development. This is what I call the government's commitment to productive infrastructure. It is development thinking. Infrastructure is not merely a cost to the treasury. It is productive capital. A road is productive when it reduces travel time and cost. A bridge is productive when it keeps communities connected. A drain is productive when it protects homes and businesses. A major corridor is productive when it unlocks investment, economic growth, and the well-being, and protects the well-being of our people. In Jamaica, productive infrastructure must also be resilient infrastructure. And as we learned from Hurricane Melissa, infrastructure cannot just be built for normal times. It must also be built for days when heavy rains, swollen rivers, and flooding disrupts our access. Good infrastructure gives the country what economists and planners call resilient dividend. It reduces losses before they occur, helps communities recover faster, protects investment, lowers the long-term cost of disasters, and gives confidence that the systems they depend on, citizens' confidence that the systems they depend on will hold when tested. This is the importance of the Spring Village Bridge. It strengthens this community's ability to remain connected under difficult conditions. It improves safety, improves access, reduces vulnerability, and supports community movement, workers' movement, business development, schools, and emergency services. Spring Village is not the only major piece of infrastructure that this government is embarking on. Through the Spark program, we're investing $45 billion in local community roads and main roads, supporting waterline works and targeting roads that people use every day. We have planned a better way to build infrastructure, and we're executing it through the Spark program. Through the CAPEX program, the government is advancing 6 major road projects at an estimated value of $17 billion. And through the Priority Bridge program, where we're going to build 55 bridges across the island, we're going to be spending over £100 million to build those bridges. So Spring Village is just one example of the amazing amount of infrastructure that we're building across Jamaica. Troy Bridge that we opened last week was another. These projects show that bridge infrastructure is not secondary. When a bridge fails or has to be closed, the impact is felt across all sections of the society, from education, commerce, agriculture, public transport, emergency response, and the communities. One of the things I want to speak about before I leave, though, is the importance of local contractors to our infrastructure development. The 2 bridges that we have opened in the last 2 weeks were built by a local contractor. And coincidentally, he is sitting here in front of us. That doesn't mean he's the only local contractor that is working, but he was able to give the government the best price and value based on a public tender process. There has been some talk that the government is not investing enough in local contractors. I wish to posit today, before I take my seat, that the data does not support that assertion. Over the last 15 years, through JDIP, MDIP, SHIP, the government has spent a combined 1.2 billion US dollars on local infrastructure. Local contractors have received approximately 700 million of that amount. If you go down a little deeper, all of the CAPEX programs that have been advertised recently have been won by local contractors. Whether you're talking about Grange Lane, whether you're talking about Helshaw, and we have another one that was tendered, which is the Arthur Wint, which will be revealed soon based on the assessment of the ministry. But no overseas contractor has won a tender under the CAPEX program. The recurrent road maintenance program of the government over the last 10 years has averaged approximately $4 billion a year. And every single dollar of that $40 billion over the last 10 years has gone to local contractors. Under the Spark program, we have 26 local contractors partnering with the enterprise contractor to help build our Spark roads. Yes, the argument is true. Many of our local contractors may not have the capital base to take on large enterprise projects, but the government has been very strategic in carving out a majority of spending on local infrastructure to ensure that a majority of the spending goes to local contractors. The policy is not just simply to give local contractors work, however. We have to ensure that we get quality based on the spending of Jamaica's tax dollars, which is why something like the One Road Authority is so important, where we're evolving the management of our road infrastructure to ensure that while we are increasing our investment in local infrastructure, mostly to local contractors, we have an ecosystem built around ensuring that the quality of work is ensured. Jamaica cannot build a modern economy on weak infrastructure. We cannot simply improve productivity while movement is inefficient. We cannot strengthen communities if access is unreliable. And we cannot prepare for climate events if roads, bridges, and drains are not made more resilient. The people of Spring Village and neighboring communities, we thank you for your patience. To the National Works Agency, the contractor, all the partners, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, the policy leadership of our Prime Minister, we thank you for your contribution. Let this bridge stand as a practical example of development we are pursuing. Development that connects communities, supports the economy, builds local capacity, and improves the everyday lives of our citizens. May Spring Village serve this community safely and well for generations. Because unless God builds the bridge, it will not stand. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Minister Morgan, for your wide-ranging presentation, which also covers just the breadth of investment that your government is making in infrastructure development and infrastructure improvement. I want to especially acknowledge a few residents that I was speaking to earlier as I talk about, very briefly, the concept of civic responsibility. And these ladies, including Mr. Dennis, who is the husband of one of these ladies, Sadie Facey, Sadie 79, and Sadie told me she's so happy to have the bridge because she was so scared using the Bailey Bridge. And so she's so pleased that this new bridge is here and she doesn't have to take 2 taxis. Also, Charmaine Williams-Brown, Michelle Walker, Jeanette Collins-Dennis, and of course, as I said, Mr. Dennis. And these persons told me that they had to be here because they wanted to see the opening of the bridge. But as I listened to Minister Morgan, I want to add a layer of responsibility to your civic duty, part of which is to be here and witness this happening, that you also have a responsibility to go into your communities and let people know who are not here what the government is doing to develop their country, or our country. I also want to point out a concept. Sometimes we call it confirmation bias or negative bias. And it is essentially the idea that the brain is wired to look for false and look for negative. So we can see all this development that is happening around us, but we'll pay attention to the development that is not happening. So I want to encourage us to take a moment to think about all the development that is taking place in our country. A few years ago, there was a viral video where the lady said, "Me never been seeing this yet. Me never been seeing this level of infrastructure development in Jamaica in many, many years, although I am not that seasoned. Still, we are students of history, so we know." Anyhow, thank you for listening to my monologue. I now have the pleasure of inviting to give us a cultural presentation students of Spring Garden.
What is not this by P. Blackwood? What is not this Pan Master Godland? Me say technology come turn the right and left hand. Money transfer right away we get every dime. I chat to people on screen. No, it then call FaceTime. Robot a work for people like them a man or them a woman. AI all have it one brain. I try compete with human. So we jabog in a jeopardy if we not very, very careful. All right now, one only people start to get fearful. Nowadays, people can do anything on the internet. It has something can better your life or even make you fret. Them can invade your privacy within a camera or drone. So you have to watch what you do. All when you alone. Remember when I did COVID, we did keep with school a yard. And instead of take a tablet, we did use it to study hard. Even while time I tick and attack, we still up on WhatsApp. Some are Twitter like bird, and some are chatting a snap. Well, language check a beating too. Some figure it out for right. Enough of them I use up slang. And I give the English a real fight. Me say me can't keep up with this for true. Every single day me live, me wake up to something new. People can make crazy money in any room them choose. Content creation come turn out one golden goose. Come turn out one golden goose. What is not this? Me brain almost a twist. Me I wonder what next fight. Well complex. But one thing me sure I know, this thing when name technology now have nowhere to go.
You can can't deny. I know it caterpillars can fly. So can I. So can I. I know if caterpillars can fly. So can I. So can I. Yes, I know that I can fly. For I learned the laws of life. I know if caterpillars can fly, so can I. So can I. Fly. I was born with everything I need to be me. With wings inside my mind to set me free. I know I got vision more than my eyes can see, and I know I rule my destiny. So no matter how you try, you can never change my mind. I know if caterpillars can fly, so can I. So can I. I know if caterpillars can fly, so can I. So can Caterpillars can fly. So can I.
Una can clap them one more time, please. That was such a profound performance. And hear what the young lady said at the first part? Una have to watch the drone all when una alone. Chat GPT, FaceTime, content creation is a new era. Anyway, of all the profound things that they said, what stood out to me? If caterpillars can fly, so can I. And don't watch a mosquito or a sandfly. All right, so if this is our future is very, very bright indeed. And now I have the great pleasure of inviting our Prime Minister, the man who's ensuring that we, as well as our children, have a very strong and secure future. Please welcome Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness.
Thank you very much. This is the second bridge we are opening in as many weeks. Last week, I was in Troy, on the border of Manchester and Trelawney, where I was in the presence of some very happy Jamaicans, absolutely happy that their bridge, which was built 100-odd years ago, was being restored. They felt so much pride, they felt that they were being acknowledged and respected. And I felt so good within myself as their Prime Minister to have the opportunity to open and hand over to them this wonderful piece of infrastructure. So it gives me also great pleasure today to be here with the people of Spring Village, and adjoining communities to celebrate the opening of another wonderful piece of infrastructure. Now, this bridge, I believe it is called the Nightingale Grove Bridge, was built in the early 1900s. Yes, so this bridge is over 150 years old. Yes. That it was washed away, well, it wasn't really washed away, but it was compromised by heavy flows, should come as no surprise. You see, as I look at the faces of the people gathered here, when we think of infrastructure, bridges and roads, they must last forever. Yes, that's how we think of it. It must last forever. But as we all know, nothing lasts forever. Mind you, some things last for a very long time. If they are well built and if they are well maintained, and as a spiritual person myself, if God smile on them, meaning if they have the blessings of the Lord, it will last a long time. But when it comes to a bridge, roadway, 150 years is a long time. And especially 150 years when we can all agree it wasn't always well maintained. That it has lasted so long, it would have meant that the bridge was well built, regardless of how well used it was. Because obviously that bridge was built for a time when it was buggy and donkey cart that was passing it. Nowadays, my good friend Robert Levy has some very heavy trucks passing on that bridge, carrying the chicken that we all eat, the best dressed chicken. And the workers who go to that factory and go home use that bridge. The children who go to school in this area use that bridge. 150 years ago, nobody was thinking about the best dressed chicken. Or the schools that are here, the many housing schemes that are here. That is the reality. But there's one other contemplation that our forebears who built the bridge 150 years ago would not have thought about. And that is the issue of climate change. Our climate, my friends, is changing in ways that are creating more frequent and more intense weather events. But not only is the climate changing, the way in which we use our environment is impacting how the environment behaves, if you want to use a term like that. I want all of you to stop and think. Every slab roof or zinc roof that you put up, every mile of road that you pave, every tree that you cut down to create a field, leaves water to run off to somewhere. Where is it going to go? Is it going to run on the roads, where it ends up anywhere? Does it go into drains where it is guided into a stream or a river? Or is it going to percolate naturally into the soil? Well, as we expand our use of lands to build houses and factories and schools and hospitals and roadways, and as the climate is getting hotter and we are getting rainfalls that are what we would describe as unseasonal, super phenomenal, and intense, infrastructure that wasn't built to account for that will come under heavy strain. And that is what happened to the bridge. So it wasn't just the more intense use of heavy trucks and much more traffic. One weather event created heavy flow of water, which undermined the abutments and the approaches. The bridge exhibited some cracks, and eventually the engineers at the NWA decided that it was no longer safe to traverse the bridge. And so in September 2022, the bridge was closed. That's almost, 4 years ago. Now, after many articles and protests and complaints, the government was finally able to mount a response to the closure of the bridge. And let me put some things into context. It was not that we did not have the funds to fix the bridge. I don't want anybody to get any ideas that the government is awash in cash. Because one of the factors which led the government to make the allocation was the partnership offered by Jamaica Broilers. And I want to commend Jamaica Broilers for their good intention. But the real obstacles to a quick response to the bridge would be, first and foremost, the process to determine whether or not this public investment was worthy to be made. I want you to understand those words that I have said. There was a time in Jamaica when the decision to spend on capital works was largely made by a process that was highly subjective. Which minister had more influence? Which constituency had more influence? In other words, a high level of political would have determined capital expenditure. Now, at the highest level, there is nothing wrong with it in terms of having there's nothing wrong with capital expenditure responding to political imperatives. Happens all the time. But you want to be sure that with limited resources, if I have 10 bridges that need repair, the one that gets repaired should be done on an objective basis and not on the basis of who has the greater political influence. If you understand what I'm saying. Because then you could end up having infrastructure being done only in constituencies that are supportive of the government. You could have critical infrastructure being done by virtue of who know the minister. Or usually, you could have infrastructure being repaired by who demonstrate the loudest. Who burn the most road. Who block the most road. None of those should drive a country's capital investment program. What should drive a country's capital investment program? First of all is which investment is going to deliver the greatest economic return for capital investment. That must be how all Jamaicans begin to think about how their government uses their tax dollars. Now, mind you, I'm about to say something that may not be immediately popular. But every day I'm faced with demands. The road in front of my house is filled with potholes for the last 50 years that this scheme was built. This bridge that was built 150 years ago that is broken down, children have to use it to go to school. You know, a major industrial operation that provides the country with much needed protein uses this bridge, and if they have to divert, it adds a little bit of more cost to their output, a couple more cents. And what do you think going to happen? Eventually it's going to get passed into the price. Great inconvenience. So governments have to scratch their head now and say, how do I balance everybody calling into the radio station about the road in front of their home and key critical infrastructure that is not necessarily in front of your home. There must be a national understanding, right, as to how we're going to develop as a people. If we take all the money and fix the roads in front of your house and leave the other infrastructure that literally generates the revenues which we can then take to fix the road in front of your house, what will happen? Now, the politics does not pay attention to this, because when you go to vote, you're not voting that the Spring Village bridge was fixed. You're going to vote that the road in front of your house was fixed. You see how you cannot allow politics to determine the expenditure of your capital budget. There's a saying, that says not everything that the public is interested in is in the public's interest. It is the reality that I face as your Prime Minister. Balancing the local, personal, political needs versus the national needs. And it is a tricky balance. I will not have the opportunity always to explain to people in this way why we have to do the things that we do. And there are those who, as we say in Jamaica, have it up in them craw, that you wait till election. And so it goes. We, as a government, we have to do what is in the national interest all the time. So, this is a project that we consider to be in the national interest, because $250 million spent here could have been spent on roads in several other communities. I toured this bridge in June 2004, and I toured all the communities with your wonderful Member of Parliament, and he made sure to take the opportunity to carry me into all the nook and crannies and show me the roads, because that's what the MPs do. When they get a hold of me, they make sure to stand with their constituents and say, see it? I show it to the Prime Minister. I told the Prime Minister. Poor me. And so he did show me all the other roads that need attention. And in balancing the response to road infrastructure, we came up with a program called objectively done. We had to create on how we're going to manage, as Minister Morgan pointed out, $45 billion of road repairs. What did we do? Came up with a program called Spark. And Mr. E.G. Hunter, the executive director of the National Works Agency, was very instrumental, himself and Minister Clark, in coming up with the name and designing the program. I must say here that E.G. has announced that, like everything, there is a time and a season. And Mr. Hunter has served this country well as the executive director. Well, he was first president of the NWC and then served for many years as the chief engineer of Jamaica, as the chief executive officer of the NWA, the National Works Agency. And I recall having many discussions with him about how we are going to navigate the new system of objective allocation of the country's capital budget, which is called the Public Investment Management System. So what that does is that any investment at all that is considered capital in nature, meaning it is going to make a substantial change to existing infrastructure or build new infrastructure. So it's not repeating every year. That go through a competitive process. And what's the nature of that competitive process? First of all, everything has to be assessed. So we want environmental studies. We want to see whether or not it makes economic sense. So we look at the internal rate of return of the investment. And then we look at what is called in economics the opportunity cost. If we spend the money on project X, will we get more impact than if we spent it on project Y? And we look at all kinds of other variables to make sure that the investment decision is a wise decision. So that your tax dollars for capital resources, capital allocation, is not at the mercy of subjective decisions. In other words, we can run with it. Now, Mr. Hunter came up with a very good strategy to approach the public investment process, and we were able to maneuver through the process very quickly. In fact, extraordinarily quickly. It took us 7 months. Ordinarily, to go through this process of public investment would take sometimes 2 to 3 years. The average time should be maybe a year, but sometimes it goes over, as was the case with the Troy Bridge. Now, we have to be smart about setting smart objectives. You can't just set objectives which are inflexible and which do not contemplate events and considerations that have impacts greater than the benefit of strictly following the objective and the policy. For example, would the government contemplate not rebuilding the Troy Bridge? The people in Troy would not stand for that. So in a sense, there is no need to do an economic assessment on the bridge. In a sense, there is no need to look at the internal rate of return. Yes, you want to do the environmental impact assessment, but it can never be a question that we are not going to rebuild the Troy Bridge. Because if you're not rebuilding the Troy Bridge, then the other decision must be, are you going to move the people to elsewhere? You see the challenge. So if we are going to take 2 years to make a decision, that is obviously a decision that we have to make. It makes no sense. Why? To comply with process. But hear me now. When the people of Troy are walking across the river on the log, trying to get to the other side, they are not thinking about process. When you have to take off your shoes and wrap up your foot in plastic bag to walk across when this bridge was closed, which I know many people had to do, or you had to take the footbridge, you weren't thinking about process. You are not giving the governments any point when I say that we are going through a process. What you want is the result. So you want a bridge. And so we have to take a second look at the public investment appraisal process that we have put in place. It's a critical process. As I've said, it is important. But it needs to be smarter. It needs to consider materiality, for example. Is $250 million material to the $60 billion or the $100 billion that we are going to spend on infrastructure? If it is not material, then it doesn't have to go through all of the process. If it is a decision that has significant national implications politically, then it is not a decision that has to go through the process because you have already made the decision. You have to do this. Not all projects have to go through the extensive process. Now, there are some listening to me who will say, but no, you make the law. Yes, we cannot deny. We are the ones who put in the law. But that's the beauty of it. That as you see how the law operates, you can make adjustments to get a better law, a more effective law, one that accounts for some of the considerations that were not accounted for when the policy and the law was made. But we don't just get up one day and say we're going to change the law. We go through a very extensive process, again, of explaining to the people why we have to change the law. We do it here at the podium when we speak to audiences like this. We do it in the parliament, and we do it at our press conferences. That's how we engage. Then we go through, again, other processes, a long process until the law is changed. We definitely have to revise the public investment appraisal system to ensure that, yes, there is objective use of the capital budget, but that it is smart enough to acknowledge projects that are not material to the overall budget to create a problem, acknowledge issues that have national importance that are decided by, again, yes, the cabinet, by political considerations which may be necessary, and have those dealt with on a special tract or an alternative. So that has to be done. The other contemplation which affected the project, because if you looked at the timeline, you would see the bridge was closed in September 2022. I toured it in June 2024, approved it a couple of months after that, and then we are here now in June 2026. A long time. The 2-year process from start of works to construction, some of that had to do with, first of all, very few contractors wanted to take on this project. Why? Because the project required specialized equipment, piling equipment, that had to drive piles 100 and odd feet into the ground to make sure that the foundation of the bridge is stable. Some of our contractors don't have that equipment. So this was put out to tender about 2 or 3 times until eventually we found a contractor who had access to that kind of equipment. Minister Morgan pointed out how important the contractors are. The contractors are critical partners in the efficient expenditure of the capital budget. So you could have the money, but if you don't have the contractor who has the competence and the equipment to do it, the money won't be spent. And this bridge suffered from that. Eventually, we found a contractor who has done an excellent job. Mr. Woodbine, please take a bow. You have delivered the 2 bridges. I haven't been told whether it is on time and in budget, but the cabinet approved 250 million, and I see that the bridge cost 250 million. So I suspect it came in on time and on budget. So we commend you. Now, that having been done, then there is the issue of labor. Believe it or not, the contractors, and this contractor pointed out that they had problems with having labor, both skilled and unskilled. I know when I say this, many of you sitting in there, you say, what? Am my son there yard and I do nothing? As I go around the country, I see a whole heap of young men sitting down. Boss, we don't want to work. And I scratch my head and say, but all the contractors, I was at the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce Awards dinner last night, and that was a part of the conversation, the challenge, we don't have enough labor, not enough skilled labor. Yes, my friends, labor is a constraint on our growth. Every young person that decides that I am not going to work, I am going to stay home and stay on the corner because them not pay me enough, we lose productivity. We lose productivity. Now, I understand the problem. I can't tell somebody to go work for what can pay their bus fare to get back home and send their children to school. I understand that. I want you to know I understand that. Which is why every year we try to inch up as much as possible the minimum wage to set the baseline, the threshold, so that employers will increase their wages to you. Because we are now, believe it or not, we are now at full employment, at 3% unemployment. That's basically full employment. But I can tell you that with the construction projects that we now have and the construction projects that I see coming across my table, we do not have the labor to fulfill it. It is not that the bodies aren't here. It is that they are not willing to work. It is not for me as your Prime Minister to only lament about the problem. I have to do something about it. So we did put in some programs. When we became government, we put in the HOPE program. And that program was such a success. We brought in 20,000 youngsters. We trained them. And all of them are now in the labor force. We estimate that there are about 50,000 persons out there who are unemployed. The problem is to get them skilled, but the bigger problem is attitude. That's the bigger problem is the attitude. So we are in dialogue now. We're speaking with the Heart Trust, and we're thinking, what kind of strategy, what kind of program can we put in to attract those people who have decided that they're not offering their labor to the labor force, and to get them into the right attitude where they see that labor is not a bad thing, that service is not servitude, because that's a big view. that, labor is not slavery. We have to get them into a mindset, into a work ethic. So I want to assure Jamaica that the government is cognizant of the problem, and we will be launching a program very soon to address it. But a part of that also means that as our economy is expanding and we're doing infrastructure projects like this and we have a capital budget that we need to spend and spend it quickly, that we have to get our Jamaicans into the labor force quickly, working with our contractors quickly, but where necessary, we may have to bring in skills to augment and support the local resources that we have. It is a contemplation that we have tried to avoid, but at this point, at this stage, we definitely have to look at bringing in labor to supplement and augment, especially as we move into the rapid reconstruction and rebuilding of Jamaica under the NARA project. So I'm taking this opportunity to appeal to all our youngsters, all the people out there who are not working. If you don't have a skill, contact the Heart Trust NSTA. Government will find ways to get you into the workforce. We will train you. We need you. We need all our young unemployed men and women who are not working. Jamaica needs your labor and your talent to ensure that the growth of the country can be realized. So yes, this project faced some delays, not so much with not having the labor, but not having the labor that would stick to plan, that would turn up every day. Right, Mr. Contractor? You set a schedule and you're waiting on the mason to turn up and you hear him gone somewhere else. Go and work for somebody else, And so your project that you have to wait until the next mason, you can get him or the same mason comes back. And these are problems being experienced right across Jamaica. And it adds to the delay of projects. So I think I've spoken quite a bit, and I think based upon the eyes of the audience that there is a deeper understanding of some of the issues that I have raised. And what I want to do now is to ask you to become ambassadors for the arguments that you have heard here today. When you get back into your church, into your school, into your bars, and you hear some of the conversations, which are reasonable conversations, but they don't have the depth of understanding as to why we face the situation that we face, that maybe you will be able to add a different dimension and a different understanding to the problem so that the Jamaican conversation can be edified and meaningful. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed, therefore, my great pleasure to say that this bridge is now officially open and handed over to the people of this area. May it be for the benefit and prosperity of the people of Jamaica. God bless you and thank you.
Andre O'Connor and all the other councillors being supportive of this community and always being attuned to its need. Our sincere appreciation goes to the representatives of the National Works Agency for their technical expertise with the planning and execution of this major project. We also wish to thank Mr. Levy and other representatives of the Jamaica Broilers Group for their partnership and tremendous support of this project, which demonstrates the power of collaboration between the public and private sector. During the interim, as we can all remember, they bridged the gap, no pun intended, with the sturdy and brightly colored pedestrian bridge, which helped the community to maintain contact with the world outside its confines. To the community members, families, schools, and all other community interests, thank you for your cooperation, understanding, and unwavering support throughout the years it took to complete this structure. For all the persons who participated in this event, Pastor Doreen Williams, Mrs. Arlene Williams, Honorable Robert Nestor Morgan, and the ably moderator, and the lovely audience, thank you. To the students of the Spring Gardens Primary, well done. Your performance was superb. To the staff also, thank you for your hard work and dedication in guiding our future leaders. Today, we are especially grateful for the structure as it has helped ease the challenges associated with travel to and from the community. The alternate route was much longer and quite difficult to navigate, even though in recent times it has been fully paved and transformed. This bridge now represents progress, convenience, safety, and hope. It makes our journey shorter, less tedious, and more easily connects us to work, school, home, church, and essential services. It would be remiss of me to fail to acknowledge the support of residents who voluntarily watched over our vehicles and kept them safe while they were parked out of our view somewhere down there during the construction period. Your selflessness and sense of responsibility truly reflected the spirit of community. We also extend deep appreciation to the taxi operators who faithfully and safely transported us to work, school, and other places, often going above and beyond to ensure that we arrived at our destination safely. Above all, we thank God for sustaining us throughout the years, for granting us patience in difficult times, and for blessing us to see this project eventually come to completion. We acknowledge his continuous favor, protection, and guidance over this community and over all who labored to make this day possible. Once again, thank you to everyone who played a role, seen and unseen, in the construction of this bridge. May it always stand as a symbol of progress, unity, and a brighter future for generations to come. Thank you, and may God continue to bless us all and bless Jamaica, land we love. Thank you.
The Roman philosopher Cicero says that gratitude is the greatest of all virtues, or not only the greatest of all virtues, but the parent of all others. So Ms. Perry, thank you for thanking everyone. And with that, we have come to the end of the ceremony, and we now proceed for a photo. Thank you again, and have a very good rest of your day.
So,
We still have a few more time. Sir, my brother.
If the camera and them there's space.
all right. I like that.
Wheelchair, man. I have to go back up a little bit, you know. You need to see that. Wheelchair, man. I have to back up, people, back up, please. So get a nice shot of the bridge.
Everybody's ready?
No, hold on, Punk Bob.
Work this is as bad. Work this is as. Yeah.
All the phones are in place. Occasion. All right, everybody's ready to count to 1 million? Ready? Yep. 1 million!
All right, so the man say more and go.
All right, so we're going to allow